wonderful time to enter into a time of reflection and to invite God to speak into our lives. And we've been walking in this devotion series through Luke chapter 6, in which Jesus is teaching from a level place and inviting a new kind of society that brings people together from a broken and divided world. And so my hope is that God might have a message for you and how you can transform your world to be more like God's family that is bringing goodness and life where there is pain and brokenness. So I want to invite you to just spend some time in prayer, asking God to open your ears, your eyes, your spirit, your heart for whatever God might have to say to you today.
It is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. It is well. It is well with my soul.
Hear the reading of the text from Luke chapter 6. Jesus came down with them and stood on a level place with a great crowd of his disciples and a great multitude of people from all Judea, Jerusalem, and the coast of Tyre and Sidon. And Jesus looked up at his disciples and said, "Love your enemies, do good and lend, expecting nothing in return. Your reward will be great, and you will be children of the Most High, for he is kind to the ungrateful and the wicked. Be merciful, just as your Father is merciful." The word of the Lord. Yesterday we talked about how God invites us to live out our calling, and one where we don't expect rewards from those around us, but we expect rewards from God, because God doesn't operate like the rest of the world. God is gracious and merciful and just overflows with goodness in ways that are unexpected by the standards of the world. This text invites us to see that we are invited into God's family. And we've talked about that throughout this devotion, this series, that God is bringing a family to heal the world. And so Jesus says, you will be children of the Most High. Your reward will be great. For God is kind to the ungrateful and the wicked. And I don't know how often we think about the fact that God's kindness is not conditional, that God's kindness is given to those who are righteous and to those who are wicked, to the ungrateful and the wicked. That God gives this kindness to everyone. And I don't know that we actually, as a society, value kindness as highly as other character traits and other ways of being in the world. But God is kind, and that is not a character flaw. God is kind to everyone, and it is not dependent on your response to this text. It's not dependent on anything. God is just good, loving, and kind. And the conception of God as the kind of lightning bolt God looking to strike you down with judgment at any moment is not the kindness and the love of the God that we see in the Bible. And I just want to invite you in this prayer time, in this devotion time, to sit and think about how kind do you sense and experience God to be? Because often I think sometimes we hide from prayer. We hide from reading scripture because we're afraid that God will notice, will correct us, will call us out for the things that we've done wrong. And we expect that judgment and that anger. And God does invite us to change. God does invite us to be transformed, to live in a new way. But it is done with a kindness and a love that leaves us realizing how gracious and merciful God is. And so today I just want to invite you to remember God's kindness. It's like when you're a kid and you've messed up, you made a mistake, and you're expecting that parental anger or yelling or frustration or whatever to come out, and always being surprised that God, like the father in the prodigal son story, is just jubilant and joyful about having their son back, having their daughter back. And so how much do we need to change the way we see God to recognize that God is kind? Being a child of God also means we are invited into a calling, though. We are invited to live up to that parental example. And so how well are we living into that example of kindness that God inspires us to take on? How much is kindness prioritized in your value list? And when I know for guys, we're given this image of what it means to be a guy and to be strong and macho and powerful, and to, sometimes rudeness seems to be what wins out in society, and anger. But what is it to value that kindness is a trait of God and should be a trait of each of us? And so how much is kindness a priority in your life and in your spiritual devotion and your calling? And if we are called to be kind, like God is kind, and at the end of this verse list, if we are called to be merciful, just as our God is merciful, who in your life do you need to live out kindness and mercy towards? Who in your life deserves a kind response because kindness is good? Who in your life deserves mercy because mercy is good and what God calls us to? And think in your life of who you could be more kind to, who you could be more merciful to, and who God is inviting you to model your life after God in this world. And maybe so that person might see, what does it mean to be a follower of Christ, a follower of God? It is to be merciful and kind. And lastly, I just want you to be reminded again where we started off on this. For every place in which you feel that shame, that guilt, that hiding from God, remind yourself that life and love and goodness come from showing up and saying yes to God and realizing that God is kind and loving and merciful and gracious. And we should stop hiding, stop fleeing, and stop running away from our kind and merciful God. Hear again the words from Luke chapter 6. Jesus came down with them and stood on a level place with a great crowd of his disciples and a great multitude of people from all Judea, Jerusalem, and the coast of Tyre and Sidon. Then Jesus looked up at his disciples and said, "Love your enemies, do good, and lend, expecting nothing in return. Your reward will be great, and you will be children of the Most High. For he is kind to the ungrateful and the wicked. Be merciful, just as your Father is merciful." May you feel that kindness and that mercy in your life, and may you extend it out into the world, not looking for rewards, but trusting that being a child of God is enough, and live like your Father.
It is well with my